Welcome to the Boneyard with Steve Robertson. As always, I am your good friend and host, Steve Robertson, here on the Monday edition of the Yard. And for many people, it's the end of football season. The season ended for me round one of the playoffs when the Steelers got beat. But I still keep up. I'm just not so incredibly engaged. I know for many of you, when the Cowboys lost and Dak had a bad game, season ended too. But we got Super Bowl Sunday coming up pretty soon. Let's take a quick look at the weekend that it was in the National Football League. The Baltimore Ravens, a one seed in the AFC, 34-10 winners over the Texans. I think Texans actually overachieved this year. You got to feel good about the direction of things with Stroud. But, the Ravens now in the AFC Championship game. They're going to face the Kansas City Chiefs, who took care of the Bills. And what a wild playoff run it's been for Kansas City so far. I know you all have probably kept up with it. You're probably excited about all that stuff because Chris Jones, of course, Willie Gay, those guys are recipients of Super Bowl rings. And, man, what a great job by Chris yesterday. I don't know if you watched the game. It was not a masterpiece by any stretch of the imagination for of offensive execution. But look at numbers here real quickly. Chris Jones just kind of he only has 3 total tackles, but goodness gracious, so much pressure on the quarterback. Willie Gay also had 3 tackles, a tackle for loss, but those Bulldogs still playing. And so that's the rooting interest for me. So Ravens and the Chiefs, just like everybody expected. The 49ers take care of the Packers. So, of course, Elton Jenkins, Preston Smith eliminated from the playoffs. You hate to see that. I know the Niners are a team that's been kind of the sexy team for a while. It's interesting. We have a little internal conflict at the Gene's Page staff. Rion, a Niners fan. Justin Frommer, an unabashed Detroit Lions fan. Of course, Frommer from in the great state of Michigan. So those two teams will square off. As you know, again, Niners 24-21 winners. A 10-point fourth quarter for the Niners. It really felt like Packers were in pretty good shape here. In the fourth quarter, the Niners closed them out. Packers went 9-8 this year. Wasn't a great year. Of course, big win over the Cowboys. And then the Buccaneers lose to the Lions 31-23. Already seeing people wanting to make a coaching change there in Tampa Bay. But nevertheless, 31-23 for the Lions. They're now 12-5. And they'll be taking on the Niners. So fun in the National Football League. So both games we played on Sunday. You won't get your 2 weekend days to just kind of sit and vegetate in front of the TV and watch NFL. You can watch some college basketball. We're going to talk about that shortly. But here's how the game is going to be played. The early game is the AFC Championship game. That's going to be at 2 p.m. this Sunday. Baltimore opens as a 3-point favorite in the game. I'm pulling for the Chiefs. I'm a Steelers fan. I can never pull for the Rats. Just can't do it. That game's going to be on CBS. It's also the parent company 247 Sports, where genespage.com is an affiliate. The Detroit Lions will be at the Niners. San Francisco opens up as a 7-point favorite. That's going to be a 5:30 p.m. kickoff on Fox. See what Brock Purdy and those guys can do. But saw a note earlier that Niners hadn't been to a Super Bowl since Steve Young and Jerry Rice. It's been forever and a day. And the Detroit Lions, of course, one of the most anemic traditions in the history of the National Football League. So they're kind of a Cinderella story and putting together a good season for sure. So that's your NFL capsule as we get ready for that. So again, this time next week we'll know who's going to be in the Super Bowl. I don't know if you're planning a party or not. If you're planning on inviting me, I don't like the pico de gallo in the nachos, just to kind of let you know ahead of time. You never know. I may just show up. Might just come crash your party and blow up your set. I don't know if I can just fit into the room, though. I think you'd be glad to have me. I don't need a whole lot. I don't drink, so you don't have to go out and get some extra Budweiser or anything like that. Or what are you guys drinking these days? Modelo? I think that's the most popular beer in America, Modelo. You don't have to go out and get that for me. Just give me a couple Diet Cokes. We'll call it a day. But I enjoy the Super Bowl every year, no matter what the rooting interest is, whether I have a team. It's actually better. You want to see your team win the Super Bowl, but sometimes you can enjoy the party a little bit more when you don't have an emotional investment in the outcome of the game. So for those of you whose teams are still playing, best of luck to you. There can only be one winner, but to make it thus far is very exciting. It is. And that's the thing, too. I look at all this stuff. The Ravens have had some success. Kansas City has kind of been, under Andy Reid, has been, one of the more dominant teams since New England kind of fell from glory. I don't know. I like parity in football. I like parity in everything. I don't like dynasties unless it's our team. Love to have a Mississippi State dynasty in anything. But you know what I'm saying. Let's be honest. If Detroit wins, it's good for the game. If Frisco wins, and it's been 30 years since they even appeared in the Super Bowl, it's good for the game. It is. Baltimore winning is not good for the game. It's rivalries. They run deep with me. But anyway, let's get excited about that. Postseason football is always a lot of fun. It is. It's where legends are made. Speaking of legendary, Bulldog Burger Company, a legendary venue for a night out with family or friends. I don't know what the occasion is, but you can be comfortable at Bulldog Burger Company. It's not a white tablecloth restaurant. If you want to wear your sports jacket, you can, but if you want to loosen that tie, maybe just go in there and have a good evening, have a cold beer, an adult beverage at Bulldog Burger Company. You can do that too. I don't know. You can wear your pajamas in there for all I care. Making a difference to me. I think you're never going to feel out of place at Bulldog Burger Company. It's a very welcoming place. 3 great locations to serve you: University Drive in Stark Vegas, Gloucester Street there in Tupelo, Lake Harbor Drive in the Ridge and Flowwood area. Go in and have those spring rolls as your appetizer. They'll make you and everybody around you better looking. It's true. Make the world a more beautiful place. And get that great restaurant quality hamburger. If you've never been, I'm going to always recommend you get the Bulldog. Start there. And then we'll begin to kind of branch out and get a little more adventurous. That Freshman 15, I think, was my second burger. Still love that one up there. I do. I like the Mission a lot too, but I get the Pico de Gallo on the side. The Good Morning Burger, one of my early favorites as well. The Bryant, outstanding. The Lauren, the Mississippi Barbecue Burger. That's the thing. There's so much variety there. You can't go wrong. And maybe you're not feeling a burger. Maybe the kids are. So you know what, Steve? I'm going to go in there and have a Sloppy Joe sliders. I'm going to have the BLT salad. You may like it fried. I like it grilled, which is kind of a, anti-601, right? Everything in the 601 area code, is fried. Everything. We fry everything, even ice cream. But at Bulldog Burger Company, you can get the grilled BLT salad. You'll be glad you did. The portion's so incredibly substantial. So many people out there, after COVID, they charged you more and gave you less. Not Bulldog Burger Company. Nope. The same quality of service, food, atmosphere you can always expect. The place you've grown to love. It only gets better and better. Absolutely, for sure. Bulldog Burger Company, the place where people go to meet. M-E-A-T. All right, Mississippi State men's basketball. We picked up when we expected to. Maybe not with the style points we hoped. Right? Let's just be honest about that. It's okay to win and still be a little bit concerned. I was on Bo Bound's show earlier today. It's one of the things that I think is rather interesting. It's okay for us to be critical. There's a difference between being critical and being negative. We got some people, and it's not just germane to the Mississippi State fan base. It's not. We got some people that always forecast failure. Doesn't matter the sport, doesn't matter circumstances. Again, I go back to 2014. We were number 1 in the country. We were undefeated. And we were still griping and complaining. It's like we're always just waiting for the other shoe to fall. I remember just yesterday. Like it happened just yesterday. There's our secondary. I'm thinking, well, it's happened, guys. It's now official. We're undefeated, number one in the country in football, and still finding something to complain about. Enjoy the ride, brothers and sisters. Enjoy the ride. Now, I still have high expectations for this Mississippi State men's basketball team. You know, a win's a win. We win by 13. Would have liked to have seen a little more rhythm and flow on offense. But this game was never really in question. I mean, you look up and it's 13-12, and you're like, oh, I mean, come on. It's just like Novocaine. You just keep waiting for Tolu to take over. And that's what happened. At the half, it's 36-21, Mississippi State. And really, again, it felt like at no point in that second half did it feel like Vanderbilt was going to make a run substantial enough to make a difference. 9,172 fans showed up, and you all to be commended. You know, after we had the sellout crowd for Alabama, and then we didn't win, there was a lot of people that were ready to jump off the bandwagon, but not you. Matter of fact, I saw a ton of people looking to buy tickets on Friday and Saturday to go to the game. Big news, man. It is. And thank you all for getting out and supporting our team. Again, actual attendance, scanned attendance, 9,172. Now, of course, we reduced the seating capacity there, and it's so funny, too. We even complained about that. So we didn't have anybody go into games for a while, and it looked bad on TV, right? We'd have people that buy season tickets, and maybe they couldn't make it for a midweek game. Maybe they just got disenfranchised with the team, and they wouldn't come, and it looked bad in the lower bowl area, that we could have the rafters packed and then nobody in the lower bowl area looked bad on TV. So we complained about that. And now all of a sudden it's like, hey, nobody's going to the games. Well, now people are going to the games. Well, hey, why do we reduce capacity? Take a breath, okay? We reduce capacity because it's pretty rare for us to be able to announce a sellout crowd. And so we've reduced seating, added some amenities, and back-to-back Saturdays, you've had a sellout crowd at Humphrey Coliseum. Used to be 10,000 or so. Now it's 9,200 or so. I think 9,100 is the official. And there's some walk-around tickets. I don't know how that all works. But thanks to everybody that turned out. And for everybody that wanted tickets, I would advise you to plan ahead a little bit better this time. Because we're about to roll off some wins, okay? Let's run through the numbers from Saturday. Vanderbilt falls to 5-13, 0-5 in the Southeastern Conference. Yes, we should have beaten them, but in this league, a win is a win is a win. They all count the same in the standings. They don't count the same in the net, but we had to win the game we did. Vanderbilt wins the second half 34-32, and again, the game was over at that point. Stayed, 68-55 winners. Tyron Lawrence, he has 16 points for Vanderbilt. Evan Taylor and Vin Allen Lubin with 11 apiece. Stackhouse played a lot of guys here. A lot of minutes. Malik Presley, 14 minutes for them, did not score. Attempted just one field goal. 20 of 53 from the floor for 37.7% for the Commodores. They shot much better in the second half. Of course, the game was decided by then. In the first half, they're held to 25.93% shooting. They shoot 50%. In the second half, 3 of 14 from beyond the arc in the first half, 2 of 8 in the second. So 5 of 22 for the game. We could probably live with that. 10 of 18 from the free throw line, but didn't get to the line a whole lot. But 18 times is more than you're probably happy with. 18 points in the pay for Vanderbilt. 10 off turnovers, 6 in the second half. 6 second chance points, 8 fast breaks, 7 off the bench. Game was tied 3 times, lead changed hands 5 times, all that in the early going. Tolu Smith, 30 minutes of action, 25 points, 11 rebounds. When he plays that well and gets that many opportunities, we're going to win. 9 of 12 from the floor, 7 of 13 from the free throw line. Would like to see a little more consistency there, but you can't pick apart a performance of 25 points. Had 1 turnover, 1 assist, did not commit a personal foul. And that's not to say that he didn't play a physical brand of basketball. He did. He just defended without fouling. DJ Jeffries, 31 minutes, 6 rebounds, 10 points. Listen, I'll take that stat line from DJ most games. When he's in double figures, we typically win. Shaquille Moore, 26 minutes of action, 1 of 7 from the floor. I don't know what's going on with Shaq. We got to get him going. 4 of 4 from the free throw line, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, pair of turnovers, just 6 points. We got to get more from Shaq on the offensive end. Cam Matthews, 33 minutes, 2 of 3 from the floor. Pulled down 6 rebounds, 4 points. Would like to see more from Cam on the offensive end. I know he does a lot of the old Ryan Walter stuff, Russell Walter stuff. He's willing to set the big screen, get out there and compete on the boards. Stay out of foul trouble most of the game, but Cam's going to be a guy down the stretch that's always going to have 4 fouls. And it happens, it always seems that he gets a bad call in the first half, right before the half. And listen, I'm biased and I'm a Cam Matthews guy, but it's like when you see it always seems to be there's always 1 or 2 fouls in that first half. It's almost like he has a reputation. It's like, well, this guy's going to be a doggone defender. At some point he's going to touch him. It's like, I just feel like that there is something to that. Deshaun Davis, 15 minutes of action. 3 personal fouls, did not score, attempted 2 3-point shots, didn't make either. Got to have more of a contribution there. Josh Hubbard, 27 minutes off the bench, 11 points, 2 of 5 from beyond the arc, 1 of 3 from the free throw line. We expect him to be automatic. And again, State's free throw shooting woes continue. 12 of 22. And that's going to be the game down the stretch. When you get into the month of February, March, you got to be able to make your free throws. Because people are going to realize, these guys aren't going to convert. We'll put them on the line, a late ball game. They'll miss the shots, as we saw against Alabama, as 3 seniors missed 2 apiece down the stretch. Bulldogs shoot 43.33% in the first half, 42.86 in the second. And you know what? That averages out to be 43.1%. You're going to win a lot of games shooting 43% or better. Perimeter shooting, still a bit of a mystery for us, 6 of 21. We've gotten better. But as of late, and of course the quality of competition has improved, you're not getting those wide open looks that you were in the non-conference. But a win's a win. And we need every one we can get. Got to stack as many wins together as we can. Now, next up for the Bulldogs, who are now 13-5 and 7-2 in Humphrey Coliseum, 6-0 on a neutral floor. But in true away games, your Bulldogs are 0-3. Got to get that turned around. You lose at Georgia Tech, not good. Not good. You lose South Carolina, you lose Kentucky. That's your 3 losses from the road. And next up Wednesday, and we'll talk about this game more on Wednesday's show, we're headed down to Gainesville to take on the Florida Gators. So a 4th opportunity for us to win a road game, and we certainly need it because you know who's coming to town on Saturday. Auburn, who is playing exceptional basketball. So that's your schedule this week. Gators on Wednesday, Auburn Tigers on Saturday. Need a hostile environment in Humphrey Coliseum on Saturday. And for those of you Bulldogs out there in the greater Florida area, if you're around Gainesville, guys, that's going to be a 7:30 tip. Going to be a little bit later, so you can get off work and make that little drive down there. We need as many Bulldogs in the Sunshine State that can make that trip to make it. If we're going to make something of this season, and I still am optimistic that we will, we need to win this game. We do. And again, we'll preview that more on Wednesday. But a big week for the Bulldogs because you got to start beating your contemporaries here. And this Auburn team doesn't appear to be slowing down. And that's the thing you start thinking, this stretch right here, this could be a defining stretch in your season. These next 4 games. We talked about the first 4, needed to get a split. We didn't do it. Guys, the next 4 ball games, 3 of those 4 are going to come on the road in true SEC road environments. At Florida, we're back home. The one home game we get is maybe one of the hottest teams in the country, in Auburn. Then you go to Oxford. Then you go to Tuscaloosa. So you start breaking this thing down here, and you feel like, hey, we traditionally don't play exceptionally well at Alabama. You got Auburn coming in, this 4-game stretch right here. You look at it and you say, okay, well, maybe we can get a split. Well, guys, if we're going to continue to do that, if we're going to continue to hope to get a split, you got to start getting a split. You got to pick up some wins somewhere. You can't be looking around at the end of this thing saying, well, maybe we can make a run in the SEC tournament. You got to win games when they matter, and they matter now. They absolutely do. And quick look at the SEC men's basketball standings, just to kind of keep you apprised of where everybody is. And things change. You're only 5 games into this deal, but things are always changing. Because you never know who's going to get hot. Hopefully it's us, right? We'd love to get hot. I'm concerned. Not overly concerned, but I'm concerned. I'm concerned. Auburn now 5-0 in the conference. They've won 11 games in a row. 16-2 overall. Their 2 losses have come away from the Auburn campus. Kentucky 4-1 in the league. Tennessee 4-1. Alabama now 4-1. They finally dropped one over the weekend. South Carolina 3-2. Georgia 3-2. LSU 3-2. Ole Miss now 2-3, tied with Mississippi State. Florida 2-3. A&M 2-3. Arkansas 1-4. Missouri 0-5. Vandy 0-5. So you look at what's in front of you in these next 4 games, and you realize there's a couple of those that are winnable. The Florida game is winnable, I believe. And then the road game at Ole Miss, I think, is winnable. Going to Coleman's never fun, but we're going to have our hands full on Saturday. So, again, you take it one game at a time, but it's always one of those deals where you look back and it's like, you know what, hey, we got plenty of time. We don't. We don't have plenty of time. And remember, this is the team last year where we 1-7 and then got hot late. I suspect that you're going to see Christians as guys get healthy, and I have no clue what's going on with Taylor. We get asked it all the time, and he was a guy we expected to really help us a great deal in the perimeter shooting. It's true. It's true. I look at the weekend that was. South Carolina beats Arkansas at home. Just when you think, okay, Arkansas's got it figured out. No. Tennessee takes care of Alabama 91-71. Again, I think we can play with Alabama a little bit. I just hate going over there. A&M goes into Baton Rouge. You win 73-69. Still a very competitive game. Kentucky gets Georgia 105-96. I bet that was a fun one to watch. I didn't watch it, but 200 points scored. Not a lot of defense played. Florida goes into Missouri and wins 79-67. Again, Florida not a great team this year. And then Auburn 82-59 over winners over Ole Miss. Did you see this whole thing at the end of regulation with Auburn? Did you see it? Ole Miss gets loose on basically a snowbird, right? They're out there, and the kid from Auburn just wouldn't quit. They go up and block it. The next guy gets the rebound. Auburn blocks that shot again, and then there's another offensive rebound for Ole Miss. It gets blocked. So Auburn ends the game on 3 consecutive block shots in like a final little scramble sequence there. But yeah, it's Ole Miss kind of coming back down to earth. We figured they would. They're still a good basketball team. Don't get me wrong. But SEC play, you're playing against some other athletic teams with great coaching staffs that can put some things together for you. And again, the bloom is kind of off the rose a little bit in Oxford, but we can ill afford to go in there and just think, yeah, we can just go in here and go through the motions. That team's very talented. Kind of looking ahead to the midweek here is things move quickly. Right? Things move quickly, like especially when you get into basketball and baseball season. In football, that whole week when we get into season, especially when we're winning, it just takes an eternity to get here. That's the thing about basketball and baseball is we play so frequently, it's pretty easy to kind of flush things out. Now, Tuesday's schedule, Kentucky is in South Carolina. I like Kentucky big there. I don't think South Carolina has the horses. Missouri is in at A&M. You'd like to think A&M could protect the home court there. And again, that was a team expected to finish second in the SEC this year. Not going well. Talented team, things are going well. Looking ahead to Wednesday, LSU's at Georgia, Auburn's at Alabama. That'll be a fun one, right? And Mississippi State's at Florida. We're going to be on the SEC network. Be sure and tune in for that if you can't make it in person. And then Arkansas is at Ole Miss. Exactly what Ole Miss needs, right? An Arkansas team kind of struggling a little bit on their home floor, right? So Ole Miss will have the pavilion. Not exactly sure how many people turn out, but this Arkansas team and Musselman, they're not performing up to expectations. What's so interesting too about this Arkansas team? I think Bill Clinton spoiled them, and Scotty Thurman, right? Corliss Williamson, Nolan Richardson, 40 Minutes of Hell. It's like those were some great Arkansas teams. But it's like there's some people in Northwest Arkansas, they feel like, well, hey, we should be Kentucky. We should be. And they're not. And it's not for lack of trying. Arkansas absolutely cares. They invest a ton of money into men's basketball, but they're not getting a return on the investment. A couple of years ago, Arkansas was one of the better teams that we faced. They're great, but things not going so well right now. So Arkansas people are a little bit upset. Many of them already looking forward to baseball season, and they should. Arkansas, again, in my pick to win the SEC this year in baseball. They should be really, really good. But now we're talking basketball. But, that'll be an important game. If Arkansas takes down Ole Miss, Arkansas begins to feel good about life, and then all of a sudden the Ole Miss people are like, you know what, this is just not going to work. Let's get ready for baseball, which I don't think is going to work either. But nevertheless, going to be an interesting stretch for Mississippi State men's basketball. Again, we got to win games. I mean, we can't sit here and wait for the pack to catch us. We don't want to catch the pack because the pack is beating each other up. We got to win games. We took care of that one on Saturday. Got to keep it going. And again, this is a very, very winnable road game in Gainesville. We'll break it down on Wednesday. But I'm expecting to win that game. If this team is what I think they are, we should go in there and win that game. And I understand it's an SEC road game. I understand we haven't played well on the road. I get it. But if we're going to be who we think we are, you got to go win that game. You can ill afford to start losing those games behind you and to teams behind you in the standings and expect to catch the teams ahead of you in the standings. It just doesn't work that way. It doesn't. But I got a lot of faith in Chris Jans, a lot of faith in his staff, and again, there's a lot of very interesting pieces here. You have the pieces. That's the thing you start thinking. What's going on with Murphy, right? It's like you had a roster, you felt good about it. Taylor unavailable, Murphy's been unavailable, Tolu was hurt. And so there's a measure of this you look at and you can offer some grace, right? But now that we're beginning to get people back, we got to get going. Got to get the rotation leveled out. Figure out what we want to do offensively, and at times it looks like we aren't sure what we want to do. But we got to get that aspect of it handled. We got to get more flow offensively because when teams kind of cut Tolu out and Josh hitting the baskets from outside, it's going to be a long day for us. We can't just expect Tolu Smith to carry us. Now down the stretch, tie ball games, that's where I'm going. He's got to get better at the free throw line, but he's a guy that you and I both know. When he gets down there deep in the post, it's almost impossible to stop him without fouling him. But be sure and get your tickets in advance of this Saturday's game against Auburn. It will be a hot ticket. There will be a lot of Auburn fans making the trip. There will be a lot of people asking for tickets. And what you're thinking is, well, I'll just wait on Friday. No. I think the last 2 weekends have kind of proven our fans believe, and they're coming out, and maybe it's because of the renovations in the hump, maybe it's because of quality basketball we're playing, or all the above. But it's not going to be like it has been, where I'll just show up on game day and go get a ticket. It's not like that. Again, we've reduced capacity, and there is greater interest in Mississippi State men's basketball. So if you're planning to go to see Mississippi State and Auburn play this weekend, you need to go ahead and do your best to procure tickets now. Don't wait until Friday, because chances are you're going to end up disappointed and having to watch the game at home. Not that it's always a bad thing, but we're going to need a very raucous environment. And Mississippi State students, I'm calling on you. You guys are amazing. But those of you that are going to be out there, I'm going to need a March Madness quality effort from each and every one of you. Do your homework, get on Instagram, find out what you can, and let's make this a very, very raucous environment and give the Bulldogs the best home court advantage that we possibly can. All right, time for today's Top 10 list. As always, brought to you by closewithblair.com. That's CLOSE with Blair, BLAIR.com. Blair Chandler is my friend, your friend, our friend in the mortgage industry. And maybe you didn't know you needed one, but you do. Because things are always changing. Maybe you're going to be in a situation that, down the road, say, you know what, Steve, we got into a 327 ARM. And if you don't know what that is, Blair can tell you. It's an adjustable rate mortgage. You get in a 327, it's like, okay, now all of a sudden that arm's going to start adjusting on me. Guys, I got to be able to get out of this and get maybe into a 30 or 20-year fixed. Well, Blair can help you with that. I don't know your needs, but whatever your needs are, Blair Chandler can take care of it for you. Visit him at closewithblair.com. Better yet, give him a call or text today directly to him, 601-500-2344. Again, 601-500-2344. Hit him up. Well, you looking to buy a home, refinance a home? Again, I don't know your needs, but Blair is a guy that's got 23 years of experience. You're not going to shock him. He has seen it all and done it all and can be your advocate with underwriting. Be sure and hit up Blair. Also, Bulldog has a place here in town. Season ticket holder, multiple sports. Great family. Love Blair. Love Blair. And you will too. Again, that's closewithblair.com. All right, we talked about it on Friday. I spent some time this weekend thinking about this. We did some of the greatest songs ever written. I decided to do an R&B list because I was like, you know what? There's so many of these songs that I don't want to miss great songs by trying to kind of push a list together. So I want to do R&B. Now, this is going to be really real R&B, right? I'm going to go back to rhythm and blues. A lot of these things over the years have evolved. So R&B became hip hop and things like that. But I want to go back a little bit and to some of the songs that I grew up with, but also some songs from the last couple of decades that I really appreciate. Number 10, a song that I absolutely love. And many of you may have never heard it. If you're from my generation, you have. What you may not know is this song won a Grammy. And one of the songwriters on this was Steve Lukather from Toto, who also did some amazing things with Michael Jackson's Thriller album. More on that later. But George Benson's Turn Your Love Around is a phenomenal song. I love the horns. That's one of those things about old R&B that I absolutely love is the horn section, right? It's amazing. Number 9, a more recent. I say recent. Dating myself. This song is old, but also won a Grammy. But it's still one that's very current. Every time you see these American Got Talent shows or American Idol, whatever there is, somebody always attempts to sing this in the auditions every year, and nobody's ever done it better than Alicia Keys, and we're talking Fallen. And it's a throwback. Like Alicia Keys is like an alien. And what I mean by that, I mean that in the most complimentary way. Number 1, she's absolutely gorgeous. But number 2, she is like a voice from a different time. And it's like all of a sudden she shows up here and you're like, wait a minute, this is unique. This is new. It's really not new. It's a throwback to like the legendary female R&B singers. I mean, there is just a grit in her voice and an authenticity in what she sings, I think really sets her apart. And highly accomplished and writes very relatable songs. There's so much of that nowadays. A lot of people have this narcissistic quality that just kind of write, well, it makes sense to me. I'm going to do my art. Okay, great. You go do that. But if you look at the people that are exceptionally successful, it's the ones that write relatable songs that we all can identify with. There's a lot of bands out there that I think are really neat, but the songs don't really move me. The tracks may be great, but what keeps us in, right, is the resonation of emotion that is commonplace as part of the human experience. And I think that's what Alicia Keys does as well or better than anybody. Number 8, a song actually written by Prince, also won a Grammy. All 3 of these have won Grammys. Most of these songs have won Grammys. Most of these. Matter of fact, I think every one of these, 9 of our 10 won Grammys. Number 8, I had this on 45. Again, I'm dating myself. A song written by Prince. It's Shaka Khan's I Feel For You. Of course, Shaka Khan had a legendary career in her own right. That's probably the song that she's best known for. And again, the horns, man. Love the horns. There's so much of that, man, in this music. I mean, it's America's music in many respects. But it's one of those things, too, you had the DJ's voice over it, You had some extra production value in this one. It wasn't just a typical song. There was just some things that were kind of innovative with the great song I Feel For You, again, written by Prince. Number 7. We've had a song on here many times. It wasn't written by Boyz II Men. I think it was like 6 or 7 different songwriters. It did win a Grammy. It's part of the Boomerang soundtrack. Of course, you can get it on just about everywhere when it comes to Boyz II Men. But it's the end of the road. We've all felt that. We've all had a relationship end. We've all had these emotional reactions to events beyond our control. And we love the harmonies with Boyz II Men. I understand they're a trio now rather than a quartet. But this is a group that from the very beginning has just really been a band that people identified with because, again, they took what was once old and made it new. They took the old barbershop quartet and they made it danceable. The harmonies on the Boyz II Men records, as you well know, are legendary. And this particular song, again, elicits so much emotion from listeners. You can sing the song in your head right now. You don't even, you just know as well as I do. Great track. Number 6, the one song that didn't win a Grammy on our list. And I think it's a shame. Guys, the Commodores were nominated for a Grammy 10 times. They won it once, and it was in '85 when Night Shift came out after Lionel Richie had left the band. Clyde was doing the vocals then. And Night Shift, an amazing song. I love it. One of my favorite songs of all time. There's these feelings of nostalgia, right? And I don't know if you know this, they actually re-recorded it after Michael Jackson died. Yeah, did a tribute to Michael Jackson. No matter how you feel about Michael, he was king of pop. But we're going to go with Lady from the Commodores, which, depending on what day you ask me, is one of my favorite, if not the favorite Commodore song for me. I love Lionel Richie's vocals. I have Lionel Richie Greatest Hits CD rolling around in my car. I love all this stuff. But, man, if you ever want to get into a band that's the real deal, it's not some homogenized studio creation, listen to the Commodores. They were great before Lionel Richie joined. They became legendary with Lionel Richie on the mic and still continue to perform, for sellout crowds throughout the casino circuit for years and years and years. I don't know if they're still playing. But I remember being a kid. In 1982, the Christmas parade in Columbia, Mississippi, the Alcorn State Marching Band was there. And they played Lady. And I remember like it was yesterday because I loved the song. And then to hear a marching band play it in my hometown, I remember people walking along like using their boom boxes to record the band play it. That's how good the rendition was. But Lionel Richie's the king, man. He truly is. No matter what you feel about him, the plastic surgery or whatever, I don't get into any of that. I'm not going to judge people on how they live their lives. But I tell you, the way that Lionel Richie and the Commodores worked together, and Lionel Richie was perfectly content to be the lead singer of the Commodores. And then Motown encouraged him to write a solo album because the Commodores, who had been playing forever and touring forever, wanted to take a hiatus. And so Lionel Richie recorded his first solo album, and here we go. Right? Outrageous. Number 5. My friend Demi Brown says this is the greatest R&B album of all time. I don't agree. And I think one of the reasons that I don't is because of the controversy around the album. It has nothing to do with the talent. Nothing to do with the vocal performance. But there are some things about this record. There is too much about this. It's kind of like the whole controversy about Harper Lee not writing To Kill a Mockingbird. Do you know the story I'm talking about? Do you know this? So Harper Lee, of course, was great friends with Truman Capote. And there are many people that think Truman Capote actually wrote To Kill a Mockingbird. That he was a ghostwriter of sorts. Harper Lee wrote one of the best books in the history of the United States and then never wrote another book. Now, as a person that has made part of their living writing books, I can tell you, based on my experiences as a writer and also getting to know my contemporaries, I don't know anybody that just wrote a book and said, okay, well, that's it. Especially one that had such national acclaim. And so my honest opinion is I don't think she wrote the book. I think she may have been involved in the writing process. I don't think she wrote the book. Same thing here with Lauryn Hill, The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. I don't think she wrote these songs. And I'm perfectly okay with that. Most pop singers these days don't write their own music. And if they do, they have a small hand in it, right? But where's the follow-up? Lauryn Hill is an amazing singer. Incredible. The work with the Fugees alone, in my estimation, makes her an icon. And then she finally gets free, and she has her own solo album, and then all this stuff happens. And these people come out and said, hey, there was lawsuits about all this stuff. And so that understood. That all in the background. Your number 5 song is Doo Wop, That Thing. I'm going to tell you, there has probably not been a cleaner vocal presentation in this generation than that song and that album. No matter who wrote it, but I think it's the whole thing about they tried to kind of suggest that she did it all. And it's okay if she didn't. Beyonce doesn't write most of her own music. She writes some of it, not all of it. It's okay. I mean, you go down and look these days, so-and-so wins a Grammy, and the song is written by like 11 people. It's part of the deal. But I've always found that kind of interesting. Kind of a nice correlate. You didn't think you were going to hear Harper Lee and Lauryn Hill in the same thing. You didn't think that. All right, number 4, 3-time Grammy Award winner Bill Withers. And many of you know the songs. You don't always know who wrote them or who performed them, but Bill Withers is an absolute legend. Of course, Lean On Me was one. That was big. We went with Ain't No Sunshine. Great tune. And our friends at Four Way Stop opened the show with that the other night. Some of Dave's. If you were there, and if you were there late, you would have seen your good friend and host get up and sing with the band. How about that? You never know what I'm going to do. I love those guys in Four Way Stop. And I'll tell you this, too. I think there were a lot of people at the venue that had never heard Four Way Stop because the response was very, very, very positive. Not just because Ryan and those guys do a good job. I think people are like, hey, I can get in this band. They're very, very talented. They do some classic rock stuff. They do some 90s rock stuff. And that's the thing that I saw people really respond to, the 90s rock stuff. It was a bunch of that stuff. Tons. Little Stone Temple Pilots. They even had some Green Day. I got up and went to the bathroom then. You know my policies. But appreciate Ryan and those guys allowing me the opportunity to get up just for a little bit. Be a part of their show. And I didn't go for that reason. I just kind of felt it. And here we go. You never know. Ryan and I may do some stuff down the road. When Four Way Stop is together and I'm there, you never know. You never know what may happen at a Four Way Stop show when Steve Robertson's in the audience. You don't know. You don't know. Just telling you. But I'll let you guys know next time they're around. And if you get a chance to go check them out. But again, this is more about Bill Withers. But Ain't No Sunshine When She's Gone. Again, one of those songs, man, it just kind of resonates with people in their hearts because we know. Over and over and over again, as Bill says. I know. Number 3, we talked about him some last week with Superstitious. But you got to work Stevie Wonder in that he's listed. You can't have a list about American R&B, and R&B really, again, is America's music. You can't work in a list of top 10 performers and not have Stevie Wonder. Another Grammy Award winner for him, I think it was in 75. We're going to go with Living for the City from Stevie Wonder. Again, an incredible performer. Absolutely incredible. Number 2, one of the most recognizable voices in American music. It's Otis Redding. And many of you don't know this, but Otis Redding wrote and recorded Respect first. Aretha Franklin covered it. A lot of people don't give Otis credit. All due respect to the Queen and no disrespect to Aretha Franklin. She absolutely killed her rendition of it, but it is a cover song. And there was a lot of that. A lot of those, wasn't a lot of great music out there, so a lot of people covered each other. Aretha's version is better, but I wanted to give a shout out to Otis. But again, we talk about purity and vocal quality. Otis Redding, man, that's one of those guys for me. And I love the whistle on the song, but it's Sitting on the Dock of the Bay. Everybody knows it, man. It's one of those songs that it just is part of the fabric of America. And I would encourage you to get a little deeper in the Otis Redding catalog, too. Sitting on the Dock of the Bay, of course, a legendary track. But that vocal quality, the purity in that guy's voice is prevalent throughout the catalog. Number 1, though, Steve Lukather worked on this album, too. Didn't play the solo on Beat It. It's a new year, which often means new resolutions. Many of you have said, you know what, this year I'm going to eat better. I'm going to be more efficient in what I do. I'm going to do my meal prep. We can make that so easy with you, with our friends with Factor. Factor's ready-to-eat meal delivery kits take the stress out of meal planning and sets you up for success in a new year. Skip all the long lines at grocery stores, all the prep work, the cooking fatigue. Instead, get chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your door with over 35 meals to choose from each and every week. They include options like keto or calorie smart, vegan plus, veggie, and so much more. Over 50 weekly add-ons. You've got a ton of nutritious and flavorful options to kickstart your resolutions. So skip the overpriced takeout trap. Factor is cheaper and way more delicious in most cases than takeout. Get chef-crafted restaurant-quality meals delivered to your door. They're ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes, which means more time for you to do all the other things you've got planned. Factor has everything I need for a week of flavorful, nutritious eats in addition to ready-to-eat meals. They got cold-pressed juices too, folks. Smoothies, energy bites, extra protein, veggie sides, and so much more to keep us energized during the frantic times in life. Head over to factormeals.com/boneyard50, and that 50 is significant. Use code boneyard50 to get 50% off. That's right. That's code boneyard50 at factormeals.com/boneyard50 to get 50% off. Make your resolutions count. Eddie Van Halen did. Pretty incredible. They used the first take. And Eddie actually changed the composition of the song a little bit too. But we're going to go with Billie Jean. And when Billie Jean hit the airwaves, it set the world on fire. You already had, Off the Wall album. And a lot of people knew Michael Jackson was something serious. People knew. But when Billie Jean hit it, you're like, oh, okay, this guy's back. It wasn't this Off the Wall thing. This wasn't a one-hit wonder type thing. And not that you'd expect that. Michael had a bunch of big hits with Jackson 5. But Billie Jean is an iconic song. It absolutely is. Been covered by a lot of people. Chris Cornell's version of it is amazing. Michael, the King of Pop. And I submit to you what we saw at the American Music Awards when he did the moonwalk for the first time is one of those iconic moments in American television history. All of a sudden, you go to school the next day, and it's like everybody has seen it. And it was such a big deal when he'd done it. We'd never seen anybody do it before. It was like on the national news. They would show the clip of Michael moonwalking at the American Music Awards and doing Billie Jean. It was just one of those moments. It's kind of like when the older generation saw the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show for the first time. It was that kind of moment. Like it changed things. It didn't just make Michael Jackson a superstar, but it spawned a bunch of people to begin to take up dancing, right? There are people like, you know what, I want to learn to do that. So everybody, like that was the big thing. You go to school or go to talent contest, and they would have a moonwalking contest because people were so incredibly inspired by that moment. Like, you know what? I got to learn how to do that. That makes me cool. The next thing you know, these Michael Jackson jackets are popping up all over the city. People run out buying that stuff. It changed things. It was a phenomenon unlike much anything else in my lifetime. It really was. So, again, we honor the music of the Michael Jackson. Number one, Billie Jean. If you have ideas for the top 10 list, reach out, let us know. Best way to do that is to hit up Roy on Twitter at Dogmatic67. I have people that message me too. I do my best to remember and screenshot, send it to Roy so we can kind of keep tabs. We've had a big rush of ideas here as of late, and they've all been a little bit newer, right? So they're things that maybe aren't always repeats. But if you're looking for a list, when we have time, we can accommodate you and say, hey, Steve, what was this list? Roy can typically pull it up for you if I can't. But we want to make sure that this is an interactive part of the show. So reach out, let us know. When we've done, 400 of these now? It's crazy. And sometimes these lists change. Sometimes we have to update a list. When people put out new music, because nope. This changes my top 10. But it's your top 10 too. Appreciate your support of the top 10 list. And as always, thanks to closewithplayer.com for sponsoring the top 10 list. All right, next segment of the show brought to you by Campus Bookmart, a Starkvillian institution. If you're not familiar with the merchandising there at Campus Bookmart, you should be. The best selection of Mississippi State merchandise anywhere. If you're looking to outfit your home, your pet, your RV, your office, your Mississippi State room, They're going to have plenty of things to accommodate you there. A lot of decorative items there, a lot of cool stuff. But the main reason I go there is for the clothing. I buy all my Mississippi State clothing from a Mississippi State retailer, and more times than not, it's Campus Bookmart. It is one of the things that I can always count on to find exactly what I need for that hard-to-buy-for Bulldog fan in my life. But it's pretty easy. You know, us Mississippi State folks are easy to please. Yeah, just get us some Mississippi State merch. That M over S sweatshirt that you've been thinking about, that hoodie, you're going to need that here in a few weeks as Bulldogs get ready to play baseball. Go ahead and take care of that. You and I both know some of your family disappointed you with their Christmas selections. Rather than complain about it, just fix it yourself. Visit Campus Bookmart online at campusbookmart.net. And by being a loyal Boneyard listener, we'll give you a phrase that pays. That's BSR, which stands for Beautiful Steve Robertson. Yeah, that's right. That gets you free shipping on all orders over $75. Any order less than $75, absolutely incomplete. All right, tonight the Lady Bulldogs in action against the University of Florida. The Gators 10-6 overall, but 1-3 in the conference. Very much a winnable road game for us. We've got to find a way to go out there and get it done. Gators 5-2 at home, 2-4 away from the O'Connell Center. I guess technically 5-4, counting the three neutral court games, but 2-4 are in true road games. They opened up with a win over University of North Florida, 82-65, took down Bethune-Cookman, and then Florida A&M. Their first real test of the season was number 12, Florida State. They showed up and competed in that game, but fell 79-75. They get Purdue down in the Bahamas, 52-49, then Columbia University, 83-81, two very competitive games. But they win the Baja Mar Hoops Pink Flamingo Championship. Yeah. The ACC-SEC Challenge went the way of Florida as they went to Atlanta and beat Georgia Tech 68-58. They go to Marshall, lose that game 91-88. But you see these games are all very competitive, even the games they lose. They go to Tulsa and lose 72-64. They absolutely destroyed Gardner-Webb 115-37. Very nice win in Charlotte in the Jumpman Invitational over the University of Michigan, 82-65. They take down Winthrop 73-36, then lose to South Carolina, as many of us do, 89-66. They go on the road to play Vanderbilt, a much better Vanderbilt team that we've seen in recent years. They lose that game 63-57. They then lose to Tennessee 88-81. And this past Sunday, pick up a win, a week ago Sunday, 78-69. They didn't play this weekend. Neither did we. So we'll be down there looking to play them for the first time in a week. The Gators then head to Ole Miss on Thursday. So the Mississippi week for them could be a difficult week for them, as I think both State and Ole Miss should win those games. But listen, again, for those of you in the greater Gainesville area, it'd be great if you could turn out tonight. It's going to be a 7 p.m. tip local time, 6 p.m. here in on Mississippi State time. Look inside the numbers here. This is a team, not scoring a ton of points, but 77 points in women's basketball will win you a lot of games. Shooting percentage has been decent, 44% as a team. From beyond the arc, they've been pretty good. 31%. Giving up around the same amount. Pretty good. Not great, but certainly enough to keep you honest. Rebounding has not necessarily been a strength. 39.8 boards a game. They're allowing 38.3, so a 1.5 differential in rebounding margin. They're dishing out 12.4 assists a game, allowing just under 11, but committing 14.7 turnovers while forcing 18.3. And some of that, too, you look at the quality of competition earlier in those games, that you can see those stats are padded just a little bit there. Scoring 19 points a game off turnovers, allowing 15. 10 steals a game for the team, and then they're allowing 7, right at 7, 6.9. 51 blocks, not a ton. That's just 3.2 a game, allowing 42. So you look at the numbers, and it's commiserate with their record, right? They're not doing anything great. They're not getting dominated either. Aliyah Matharu, you know her, right? Remember her? You guys know her? I'm sure you do. a 5'7" guard out of Washington, D.C., Bishop McNamara High School, was part of our program, for a couple years. And so we're going to have to make sure that we are mindful of her as she has found a new home there in Florida and is playing right well for the Gators. It'll also be an emotional game for her playing her former team. But averaging 18.4 points per game. That dog will hunt, right? Leilani Correa, 15.8 points a game, and then Rashea Kyle, 12.4. So 3 scorers averaging double-digit figures, but Kyle also pulling down 129 rebounds. To kind of put that in perspective, they have 636 as a team. She nearly has, a little over 20% of their production. So Jessica Carter needs to play well in this ball game and stay out of foul trouble. Going up against a young lady here that does a pretty good job on the glass. Also 11 blocks to her credit. Faith Dutt, 17 blocks for her. And again, they only got 51 as a team. There's 28 between 2 players. But yeah, we're going to have to bring an effort. We can't just show up and just go through the motions. But again, it's a very winnable game. But you got to get out there and defend without fouling. You don't want to put this team on the free throw line. They're shooting right around 70%. But we need to make them score when the clock is running and not allow them to kind of, settle in. The defensive effort is going to be a big part of this, for sure. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. But, you look at the three-point shooting here. They got 321 attempts as a team. Aliyah Matharu, 104 of those attempts. So right out of the third. Leilani with 77. But the bulk of their scoring between their 2 leading scorers has come from beyond the arc. Now, Matharu is also very much a volume shooter. Of those 104 attempts, she's only made 27. So we got to do a good job on backside rebounding there. But, again, it's never an easy night in the Southeastern Conference by any stretch of the imagination. You always have to show up ready to play. Now, looking around the league here, of course, everybody else played yesterday. Ole Miss with a 10-point win on the road at Georgia. That's always big. Missouri goes to Kentucky and falls by 5, 76-71. Vanderbilt gives Tennessee a great game. We played both of those teams. We know the caliber of teams they are. Tennessee wins at home 73-64. Auburn, huge win for Auburn. 78-65 winners over Alabama. 13-point win. Johnny Harris has had a couple big wins. They took down LSU recently. South Carolina goes on the road and beats Texas A&M 99-64. Speaking of the Tigers, 99-68 winners over Arkansas. So not a lot of huge upsets, but you're seeing some teams here too that are doing a good job against their contemporaries. Taking a quick look at the standings here. I don't know if you've kept up. South Carolina remains undefeated, won 17 games in a row. And the scoring differential is just ridiculous. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. And there's a lot of teams that score a lot of points. But South Carolina scores a lot and don't give up much. They've scored 1,543 points as a team. They've allowed 886. That's nuts, man. Absolutely nuts. LSU is 5-1. Tennessee's 5-1. Vanderbilt 4-2. Kind of a surprise there. Vanderbilt's 3-2, A&M 2-3, Mississippi State 2-3, Arkansas 2-3, Kentucky 2-3, Alabama 2-4, Auburn 2-4, and both of those 2 for Johnny Harris have been good ones. You win against LSU and you win the rivalry game. Those are the kind of things that curry favor with fan bases. Missouri 2-4, Florida 1-3, Georgia 1-5, and again, just like on the men's side. You can't catch the teams ahead of you in the standings when you're losing to teams behind you in the standings. And that's the situation Mississippi State faces tonight against the Florida Gators. 1-3 in the conference, and again, just 10-6 overall. You look at this, this should be a game Mississippi State should win, regardless of the fact that it's on the road. You've got to find a way to win these games because when you start breaking down the Mississippi State schedule, you understand there really aren't any off nights for your Bulldogs. You got to win when you got a chance, and those road wins are often elusive. I think we all kind of see that for what it is, but your Bulldogs now 15-5 overall. And 7-2, counting the neutral court games away from Humphrey Coliseum. So we won't be intimidated rolling in there and having to go play that game in what should be considered a hostile venue. We've been to South Carolina, got beat up there pretty good. Of course, you win at Arkansas, and again, that's a fan base that supports basketball on both the men's and the women's side. It's a big test here, especially with the Monday night game, and then we're back next week on Monday. So only one game during this week, and then LSU comes to Starkville, 6 p.m. tip next Monday. And then we head to Kentucky. And again, another team kind of right there around us. And there's A&M, And so you look at this stretch, just like the men's side, we talk about these little 4-game quadrants here, right? 3 of the next 4 for the Bulldogs. On the road, the one home game is LSU. Yeah. Kind of like on the men's side, the only home game is Auburn. So this is gonna be a defining stretch in the season for the women. Again, we've been a good road team. We've been able to get out and go play well on the road. But one of these deals here where we're going to have to get it done on the road here to kind of climb back in the top half of the standings and put ourselves in a position to make the NCAA tournament. It's a paramount game. I mean, it really is. When you begin to break this thing down and you begin to check it out, so you know what? There's a lot of basketball left to play. It is, but we got to win some games. And that sounds like, easy, but it's not in this league. And you consider, there's a lot of teams in this conference that are capable of beating each other on any given night. But most of our games down the stretch are going to be against our contemporaries. Once we get through LSU, the schedule really begins to ease a little bit. And you don't have LSU, you don't have South Carolina left after next Monday. And we talked about the difficult stretch here with all these road games. But then the schedule flips for you, and you get Georgia and Florida in Starkville. You go to Ole Miss. We've already beaten them one time. You know that the Bulldog fans need to turn out for that one. Kentucky comes here. Alabama. We go to Alabama, and then we go to Auburn, and then Missouri comes here. And so you start thinking, once you get through this little difficult stretch here to close out January and open up February, you ought to be in a position where the schedule really kind of lends itself more to you because you get some home games and the fact that you get some teams that should be in the bottom half of the Southeastern Conference. So we've got to get hot now if we're going to be the team we expect to be. All right, final segment of the show brought to you by the Stark Vegas Clubhouse. Just Google Stark Vegas Clubhouse. Google is your friend, as is the Stark Vegas Clubhouse. If you're looking for maybe a guy retreat, maybe a girls retreat. Maybe you just want to get out and say, you know what, I'd love to come to the ball game, but that's not necessary. Starkville is a great place to be. You've got so many fond memories here. Maybe it's a midweek trip. Maybe you're like, hey, we're going to play hooky from work, and everybody take a couple days off, and we're just going to go up to Stark Vegas and enjoy some of our favorite restaurants, and we're just going to have a great time. Look no further than the Stark Vegas Clubhouse. 5 bedrooms, 2 baths, that great, incredible back porch. The fire pit area. You can look through their Facebook, see all the amenities that are available to you. Whether maybe you're bringing a work group to town, maybe you are coming in for a ball game. And rather than go out and get 5 hotel rooms and go through all that laborious expense, just have everybody stay under one roof. What could be simpler than that? Go to Stark Vegas Clubhouse on Google. Book through the Evolve website. You can book through VRBO or through Airbnb if you want to, but we can save you some money if you book through the Evolve website by using promo code BSR10. That gets you 10% off your stay. What could be better than that? Have these communal areas where everybody can get together. You can go buy some groceries. You can stock the fridge with some adult beverages, maybe some water. I don't know what you want to do. It's your place. Not a lot of neighbors around, so you can kind of let your hair down a little bit. We don't want you getting too crazy. But the Stark Vegas Clubhouse could be exactly the spot you need to reconnect with friends or family or whatever you want. It'd be so great to have everybody together. But to break bread together, to recreate together, wake up together, whatever you want. Stark Vegas Clubhouse. Book through the Evolve website, promo code BSR10. All right, let's talk a little bit about recruiting. We're going to talk some baseball on Wednesday's show. But Mississippi State picked up another commitment over the weekend, and I want to talk a little bit about what's happening with the way these junior visits are working for state. We have recapped a lot of them. You guys may be familiar with us over at genespage.com. Rion Young doing a great job for us, kind of helping us stay on top of that kind of stuff. And our guy Nathan Purvis doing a great job on the graphics too. Just kind of increases our social media presence. You know, we're out here trying to make a living like everybody else. We're trying to make a living, not make a killing. But yeah, we've talked to a lot of people and picked up a commitment from Jeremiah McLeod over the weekend from Gadsden County High School in Havana, Florida. That's the town of Havana, not over in Alabama. Jeremiah McLeod has kind of quietly put together a really, really nice offer sheet in the early going. Has over a dozen offers already, including Arkansas, Cincinnati, Georgia Tech, for one, Illinois, Louisville, Maryland, Miami, Tennessee, USF. Great offer sheet. Visited Mississippi State for the first time this past weekend. Loved it so much, got home and told his family, you know what, David Turner has put Fletcher Cox and Chris Jones, those guys, in the league. I want to go there. I want to go to the league. I want to be developed by David Turner. Now, here's what I like about the commitment. Number one, this guy's 6'5", 285 pounds. This is a guy that can get after you. This is a prototypical Power 5 defensive line body type. Nice length. This is a guy, too, that could bulk up, play inside. If you watch his film, and I did this morning, he does have the ability to play with low pad level, you know, so he can play on the interior, not just get stood up and pushed out of the play. But he's also a guy that can be more of a traditional, like a 5-tech, kind of like a Jaden Crumedy type player, more of a traditional defensive end. Maybe doesn't line up as a 7 or a stand-up or anything like that, but really good film and a really good offer sheet. And then one of the first things that I saw on Twitter, and I'm going to make somebody feel bad, like, oh, he's not even rated. Guys, it's January of his junior year. I mean, there's only been a couple hundred players rated. You know, I mean, it's one of these things because of the fact that just because you don't know a guy doesn't mean he isn't a guy. There's a lot of guys out there. They're just kind of bubbling up. And again, this is a guy that made the Big Bend team. The Tallahassee Democrat, kind of like their Dandy Dozen deal, you know, their region. That's a very fertile recruiting region. Really anything on the I-10 corridor is going to be great. Now, this is about 30 miles northeast or northwest of Tallahassee. So you got to watch Florida State. Miami's trying to get him in for an unofficial visit down there. So, yeah, this is a guy with a handful of Power 5 offers right out of the gate, prototypical size, good film, and right out of the gate, we have somebody go ahead and crap on the commitment. Guys, that is not a Mississippi State problem. That is a you problem. But, Steve, he's not ranked. Well, so? Guys, we're 22 days into the new year. Not everybody's going to be ranked. Not to mention, it's so interesting. We get so caught up on that. It's like, let's say that he was ranked 4 stars, and he had half of the offers. Let's say he didn't have any other SEC offer other than Mississippi State. Well, then the conversation becomes, well, he's overrated. Look at his offer sheet. Well, now that he's not rated, we look at his offer sheet, we just completely ignore that. Yeah, but Steve, guys, can we have a little pride? Can we have some pride in our program? Can we not commend our coaches when we do a good job? I mean, it's like we've gotten so caught up on, hey, defensive recruiting isn't going well, and it isn't for the 2024 class. But then now all of a sudden we get our second defensive commitment for the 2025 class, which is both players, very, very good players, and we're upset about that. So I don't get it. And one of the things that I've learned too, and I want to tell you guys a little bit of a story. I'm not going to mention the player's name because I don't want to embarrass anybody. But I remember a kid that committed to another school that we recruit against regularly within our state. I'm going back 20 years here. I'm an old guy. I've been doing this a long time. And so when this kid committed, of course, this is in the infancy of Twitter and social media and things like that. I mean, you had things on Facebook. We even had MySpace back then. And so people would share things on those mediums. And so people got all fired up. It's like, hey, well, this kid committed. Well, who his offers? Well, he has offers from Memphis and Southern Miss. And so immediately people are like, hey, well, how good could he be? He only has Memphis and Southern Miss. And everybody's like, well, yeah, it's early, right? It's a kid that we really wanted, we really like, so we're going to take him early. Guys, by the end of the process, his profile page said he had offers from Alabama and Tennessee and Georgia, because in the eyes of some people, it's not about who we get, it's who we beat. Now, this is another school. And so I was just curious because we get ready to rank these players, and I'm like, did I miss something on this kid? Did my bias in this thing that I think, well, since he's going to Ole Miss, then it can't be any good. And so I pull his tape up, and his tape is very pedestrian. Very pedestrian. I'm like, how did he get all these offers then? So I contact my friends that cover those schools. I said, hey, can you validate these offers? And, of course, those offers were non-existent. Somebody, and I'm sure you can guess, somebody decided, well, let's just doctor his profile up to make him look like a better prospect. And, of course, he didn't do anything at Ole Miss. I think ultimately he ended up transferring because he couldn't get on the field there. And so I share that to make sure that we kind of paint the edge on the narrative here in a positive way. Number one, offer sheets are difficult to validate. When a kid says he has an offer, the thing that I always go back to is like if I see a kid that tweets out, hey, I got an offer from Mississippi State after a great conversation with Coach Jeff Levy, tagged Coach Chad Bumpus, I feel like there is some validity to this offer. Because if you're going to just misrepresent the offer, you're certainly not going to hurt your recruitment with that school and go out there and tag the coaches. That's one thing to just say, hey, I understand this. After a great conversation with Chad Bumpus and Coach Jeff Levy, I've got an offer from Mississippi State. I think that makes good sense, right? There are some people out there, of course, that work as third parties, these street agents and things like that. Now they're all working with NIL. They want to go out there and misrepresent things. And let me give you an example of that. So I won't say who because I don't want to embarrass anybody. Sometimes I think to myself, it offends myself, my own sense of myself and my own sensibilities that I don't just go ahead and call names and things like that. I just don't want to deal with the drama. But there was a particular person out there that was basically acting on behalf of some of these players as a street agent and said, contacted me and said, hey, this kid's got an offer from Mississippi State to play quarterback. Well, I knew better, but I made some calls. And I found out that he didn't have an offer from Mississippi State. Well, then that same person later contacts an associate of mine and says, hey, all these kids at the same high school in the Midwest have offers from Mississippi State. Can you put them on their profile? Well, that person then contacts me and says, hey, is Mississippi State recruiting this particular area? I was like, no, I don't think so, but let me find out. Sure enough, no, we weren't. And so I ended up getting the guy on the phone. I'm like, hey, well, I'm just trying to get some juice for these kids. And so I just wanted to put out there that they had an offer from Mississippi State. I knew that they could not commit to Mississippi State. I just wanted that to be out there just because of the fact that maybe some other schools that aren't looking at them today will look at them because those are area recruiting coaches before they go out in the spring. They go look and see, hey, well, who all is claiming offers? Well, they go to the old 247 sports database and say, okay, well, when I go to this high school, when I go to King High School in Chicago, I need to make sure I look at this kid and that kid and this kid because they're reporting SEC offers. That's the scam. And so it's important to understand those offers can't be validated. But I do think the fact that kids take the extra step to tag the coaches lends itself to some sense of credibility. And it's so funny, too, all these other people that say, well, we're able to verify these offers. Well, they can't get it in writing until they begin their senior year. So how'd you validate it? I mean, you don't even have connections with the school you cover for the most part. You really think that you can pick up the phone and call Nick Saban or his staff? And come on. I mean, come on. Come on. I'm not buying that. The second thing that I'll say is when the offer sheet matches the tape. Right? Now, just watch the tape. The film never lies. Self-reported 40s, lie. Self-reported heights and weights, lie. Offer sheets are often fabricated. Not always, but in some cases. You know what I'm saying? But the reality of it is you can't escape the tape. And so when it looks like, hey, this kid's got half a dozen SEC offers, when I turn the tape on, I expect to see an explosive player. When I look at Jeremiah, it's an explosive player. A very violent offender, very disruptive player. And so now all of a sudden I think, okay, number one, he tagged the coaches when he got the offers. But secondly, his film makes me believe, this is the guy. Now, what concerns me about the commitment, this is an out-of-state player with no previous ties to Mississippi State. The film itself validates his talent. The offer sheet appears to corroborate that evaluation. But what happens if Florida State gets involved? Because really, when you take a commitment this early from out of state, it's a pretty dicey proposition. Because of the fact, when the spring evaluation period rolls along, every school that recruits that neck of the woods, every area recruiter that has the panhandle is going to go in there and check this kid out. And so in many respects, you kind of shine a light on it. Now, I don't think you can recruit scared. Dan Mullen, when he was here, was always like, oh, no, don't do anything on these kids. Dan, it's my job, okay? But the reality of it is you can't keep these kids a secret. When Chris Jones was at Houston High School, there were two coaches in the spring evaluation period that went to Houston High School and watched Chris Jones practice. They were John Hevesy from Mississippi State and James Scheibest from Memphis. Those are the only two that came through to see Chris Jones practice. He ultimately became the number 2 player in the country. Because a lot of people aren't committed to going and seeing these schools and building relationships. And, one of the things that I like about talking to those coaches, I talk to our coaches around the state of Mississippi as often as I can, especially this time of year. Because let's say, for an example, I get an email about a kid on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. And to be honest with you, the coast doesn't produce Power 5 prospects the way you should. I'm just going to just say it for what it is. It's true. A lot of new high schools, a lot of new weight rooms, new football facilities in the last 20 years down there. But we don't always produce the way we should. And for that matter, neither does JPS. And they got a lot of restrictions there, a lot of challenges there that we don't necessarily have on the coast. But let's say, for an example, I get an email or a tip or whatever. Somebody says, hey, Steve, there's this kid at Ocean Springs. Well, number one, I know a lot of people at OS. And I can call and say, hey, what kind of person is he? What kind of player is he? And then you begin to do your own due diligence. The next thing that I do is I call some other coaches down there and say, hey, let's talk to you about some coaches, some players in your area. We're getting our list together and start evaluating some players. What do you know about this kid at OS? And then the coaches will tell me, hey, we played him and he was a non-factor, or this coach said, hey, well, we played him, we couldn't block him, or this guy, we couldn't defend him. And so it helps to get a varying range of opinions. And so by the time the spring evaluation period is over, Jeremiah McLeod is going to be promptly evaluated thoroughly by anybody that recruits the Panhandle of Florida. So he's going to add some offers, and we're going to have to compete against that. Now, can we? Absolutely, we can. But anytime that we have a kid that doesn't have a long-term relationship with us or a connection to us or a coach, I'm always a little bit concerned. And I won't use the word skeptical because we've taken some kids early in the past and they've stuck with us. But yeah, I think this is one we're going to have to really work hard. But I think it's a very, very good get. And I don't want to offer all this, quote, negativity. I'm just trying to prepare you. Because all of a sudden the guy pops up, there in the Big Bend area, Pensacola, or in the Panhandle of Florida. Now he's on everybody's radar. Maybe he wasn't before, and he said, but Steve, he already had Miami, he already had Tennessee. He did. So he's not like he's an unknown guy. It's not like he's a Chris Jones that transferred from Nettleton High School as an offensive lineman after his sophomore year to Houston High School to be a defensive lineman. The staff at Houston did an amazing job with him. Chris did an amazing job there. And so I share that with you because I think it's important. Number one, I do think it's a great early get. I think that he is a guy that fits the Power 5. But I think it's also important to understand that we're going to learn a whole lot more about Jeremiah McLeod in the next 3 months about, number one, how he feels about Mississippi State, but also, two, about his offer sheet. I expect his offer sheet to double between now and the end of the semester. Now, Jeremiah joins two other commitments. Both have ties to Mississippi, one from Mississippi. Kamario Taylor, our quarterback, who I still think is undervalued as an 88. I think Kamario Taylor is a dude. I think he's a four-star guy. I think that he is a guy that as long as he is on the field, his team has a chance to win the football game. Knoxville County always has athletes to surround their quarterback with, but this is one of the better quarterbacks that Knoxville County has had, maybe in decades. I mean, maybe since Omar Connor. Maybe, would that be fair? Possibly. Kamario Taylor is an electric player. And he's the guy currently ranked as the number 2 quarterback in the state of Mississippi behind Deuce Knight. I like Kamario's athleticism a little bit more. Deuce may have a bigger arm, but I think Kamario is a guy that is a nice building block for us. I mentioned earlier we had another defensive commitment that's been around for a little while, and a guy with ties to Mississippi, A.J. Rice. Most of his family's out from Crawford, Mississippi. He plays football at Madison Academy over Madison, Alabama. Had a tremendous year. Currently ranked in 87. And again, look at the tape. Look at the tape. This is a kid that can get out this, and he will hurt you. A.J. Rice will change your all for you. This is a kid that has no aversion to contact whatsoever. He has what we like to call in the industry contact courage. A lot of guys out there look good in the uniform. This is a guy that understands the physicality as part of the game. A little bit raw in his development, but a lot of natural ability with him. He will get downhill on you in a hurry. And if you look at his film over the course of the season, you saw his tackling form got better and better and better and better. So I like the take. And so 3 commitments early for the 2025 class from Mississippi State. We're currently ranked 32nd in the country in that class, and of course McLeod hasn't been evaluated yet, so you're not getting any points for him. But I love what we're doing early. In the last few minutes we have together, this in many respects is kind of reminiscent to our recruiting heyday under Dan Mullen. We're utilizing the basketball weekends to get guys on campus. We get them in. We have a chance to sit, visit with them, give them the big tour, let them get their pictures made, let them go to the basketball game, kind of understand the college atmosphere, but it's also a little more conversational, right? So our coaches are sitting with the players, kind of answering their questions, laying some groundwork for bigger and better relationships down the stretch. And it's worked out good for State because of the fact all of a sudden we're playing pretty good basketball, so we've got a crowd here. It's not like we're bringing these kids in there to a half-empty arena. They're having a chance to see some of the best of the Mississippi State fan base, to see the passion that we have for this university and our athletics programs. And so it's worked out really well from a scheduling standpoint. It's like, yeah, we got to get kids on campus, but we've got to have some things for them to do. How do we kind of, set things apart? But it's not just about activity. It's not just about a photo shoot. And all that's great. And one of the best things about it, too, is the very first thing that most of these kids do, they get their pictures and then they go share them on social media. So the Mississippi State brand is being advertised. Now, a lot of other people do that. But I think we've done a really good job in the early going, especially with our in-state prospects, of making them feel valued. But the number one thing that I hear from players is how much they love your coaches. It's like, hey, I had a chance to sit down with Cody Kennedy. He's an outstanding guy. Really like him. Hey, sat down with Matt Barnes. Really enjoyed talking ball with him. Hey, and Jeff Lebby is that dude. Do I need to even say anything about Chad Bumpus? Right? You guys know what a fan I am of Chad Bumpus. You know how hard that guy works. You know how much he wants to be here. You know he knows how to sell the Mississippi State message. But that's the biggest takeaway. 2 weeks into this thing now, with these juniors, they're beginning to find a sense of connection. And you go back and look, you think about Bump, right? J.J. Harrell and Stonka Burnside are here because of Chad Bumpus and because of the relationship that he built with them in the early months of their recruitment. And a lot of it, too, is not just this big cattle call junior day where Bumpus is walking around with 50 kids, right? I mean, the kids come in, Chad dabs them up. Sits down with them, asks them about their family, their parents, and you know how polished Chad is, right? And then Chad begins to maintain a relationship, keeping up with these kids. And so when there was a coaching change, even though we lost Stonka for a little while, there really wasn't much doubt about getting him back. But J.J. Harrell remained true Maroon to Mississippi State. It says a lot about him, says a lot about Chad Bumpus. And then J.J. Harrell became the de facto alpha dog in this class, kind of keeping up with everybody, doing his part. And there will be a time that we need a commitment to be our champion. Because you're going to have all these people that are going to, like last year we had a coaching change. The year before, we lose Coach Mike Leach, and what does Chris Parson do? Comes out and says, hey, we're going to be the last signing class that Coach Mike Leach ever had. Got to stick together. So you need that dynamic leader to step up. We wouldn't have had that this past 3 months had Chad Bumpus not done what he was supposed to do in the early stages of recruitment. I think the work that we're doing now is better than the work we were doing a year ago, which I think speaks well for Jeff Lebby and the staff. And I like how Jeff Lebby is so engaging and so involved with recruiting. I don't need my head coach to be the best recruiter on staff, but he's got to be approachable. He's got to be connected with these kids. Joe, and I think a lot of Joe Moore, I think Joe might have been too connected. I think Joe micromanaged the recruiting process, and he wanted to be the dominant personality in their recruitment, not necessarily the recruiting coach. I'm not being negative about Joe, but I think Joe may have been too involved with these kids, and at times we couldn't be objective when we needed to drop a kid. The flip side of that is Mike Leach, love coach. We'll always love coach, and we'll always look at these few years that I had a chance to spend with him as some of the greatest years of my career. I had somebody just Saturday night tell me, I would love to have seen what happened if you and Mike Leach had been able to maintain a professional relationship in the years ahead. We were talking about writing a book, right? But listen, Coach enjoyed recruiting, but he kind of enjoyed the supervisory role. Like Coach wanted to kind of let his guys do their job, and then you bring him in to close. Now, of course, there were always some players he needed to contact with and stay in touch with. He did that. But in many respects, Coach Leach was a little bit far removed from my comfort level. Of course, he's a veteran guy. He's been doing this forever and a day. There's a little burnout in all of us. But I think Jeff Lebby, number one, has the offense and can talk in a language that excites young people. But I think he also, too, is maybe not the micromanager that Joe is. And again, I'm not being critical of anybody. I believe, based on my early observations in the first 6 weeks, has it really been that long, or 7 weeks? I think Jeff Lebby has a really good idea, balance-wise, of how he wants to handle this. How involved does he need to be? Well, he's got to be available, right? But it doesn't need to be a situation where, he's not coaching the team. That's to the detriment of the team, right? You got to recruit every day. And Jeff obviously did a great job recruiting at Ole Miss, Oklahoma, Central Florida. He knows what he needs to make the train go, right? But it's been impressive so far. I know a lot of people think, hey, we need early commitments. I agree. I think we need some juice in state. I'd like to see a big domino fall early. Maybe Tyler Lockhart. I don't think that's going to drag out. I don't think it's going to happen right away. But I think Tyler Lockhart, because of his relationship with his brother TJ and Fred, it's going to be very difficult for people to beat Mississippi State. Be very, very, very difficult to beat Mississippi State. Now, Caleb Cunningham is the guy that maybe a year ago people thought, hey, I don't give State much of a chance. And then you see the fact, number one, Chad Bumpus is like, oh, yeah, whatever. The very first junior visit that Jeff Lebby made was to Caleb Cunningham. And now you got Stonka Burnside and you got J.J. Harrell, who have become very close with Caleb, saying, let's go, little brother. Let's go, let's go, let's go. You got a chance to take top offensive and top defensive players in the state of Mississippi fairly early in this process. I'm not forecasting it's going to happen this month or anything like that. But I won't be the least bit surprised if we go into the summer camps and we've already got a really solid group of in-state commitments already put together. I'm not going to sit here and make these calls. It's going to be the big maroon tidal wave or anything like that. Or Mississippi State's going to dominate in-state recruiting because, Ole Miss is going to get their share, right? But the early stages of the recruiting process under Jeff Lebby have been very, very positive so far. And I'm a guy that's been covering recruiting for over 20 years. I'm not new to this. I'm not a converted newspaper guy or anything like that. Now there's a lot of people in our industry now that former newspaper people that never really covered recruiting, never fully understood how the process worked because they only had to do it during, in the weeks after Thanksgiving and lead an international signing day. And more times than not, they didn't even cover it then. And so there's a lot of people now that are, making forecasts and things about recruiting. They're still learning too. I'm still learning. But I've been doing this for a long time. And I can tell you, I feel good about the direction of things. Can't really put my finger on it and say, hey, this is one of the things that we're doing exceptionally well. But one thing that I can tell you is that I think this new staff has come in and has begun to make some pretty solid connections early on. Hey, if you hadn't done so, go to whenthebottomfalls.com and you can order the newest book, When the Bottom Falls, and of course, all my sports titles are there as well. Be sure and get those. Anything ordered through the website is signed too. I get that question a lot. It will be signed if you order through the website. So that's When the Bottom Falls, that's Alpha Dogs, that's Stark Villains, that's Flim Flam, that's Dogpile. Signed copies available through the same link at whenthebottomfalls.com. If you need Stark Villains gear, you can find it at starkvillains.com. It's always cool to see those Stark Villains hoodies out and about on game day. Means a lot to me. Appreciate that very much. And come be a part of our Merry Band of Misfits over at genespage.com, the Mississippi State affiliate for 247 Sports. Until next time, let's all live our lives in a way we make more friends than enemies, and people can see a difference in the way we live.